Hello everybody, it's Andréas Elgaard. Today I would like to give you a presentation so you have a good view ahead of the annual general meeting that will take place in just a short time from now. We are today going to give you just a short introduction to ITAB, a little bit about a recap about our One Atab strategy, and if you are curious to know more about the strategy, you just go to itab.com and you look at on the group information. There is a video also where I'm presenting the strategy. Then I will talk a little bit about the One Atab strategy, how far we have come, before I round up with looking at the financial outcome from 2020, and that will be it for today. So let's get going. I will start by introducing who we are, and basically, you know, sometimes we're a little bit misunderstood, but we are really what we create together with our customers, and our customers have a very clear opinion about how their brand experience should be, and that's what we are trying to realize with them. So depending on who the customer is and the situation and the importance, we take a very different shape and form. But the importance, I think, is that we do this together with our customers. So we really co-create customer experiences, and they're really focused on delivering a more convenient experience or a more inspiring experience. And sometimes, of course, you'd like to hit both of those. And we do that by offering our solutions. And it's either our retail interior solutions, where we can, everything from designing complete store concepts to delivering those in a turnkey format, or just doing adaptations or adjustments, or inserting maybe a cafe or a shopping shop. We can do everything in terms of the interiors and whatever solution that you like. We work a lot, of course, not only to do the interiors, we work with a complete holistic solution, and there the lighting solutions become super important. Depending on the right atmosphere, the right light temperature and so on, you get a very different experience in your shopping, and that is super important to keep all of that together. And then, of course, our retail technology side. We usually say guidance and checkout here, but there's so much more than guidance and checkout in our retail technology. It's about virtual queuing, it's about traditional queuing, it's about endless aisles and digital signage, it's about all sorts of technology, and the trend is that there will be even more technology going into the stores for the future. We are today a European leader on a very fragmented market and industry. We are one of the largest players, and we have also, I would say, a global reach. So depending on who the customer is, we can help them to reach out to all parts of the world, and we have experiences from Australia to South America to US, and we really can help our customers to secure that they have the right brand experience when they expand across the world. I think it's important to just highlight that we have a focus, of course, on large international or regional chain customers, but our focus is Europe, and it's usually European retailers that we are working with. A little bit about ourselves. We operated in 2020 19 production facilities, and we were around 3,000 co-workers in average during 2020. And I think the co-workers are worth an extra mentioning, because it's really the co-workers is where all our know-how, all our passion, all our, I would say, desire to create consumer experiences, that's where it sits. And we have really passionate people that, together with our suppliers, help to bring innovation to the customers. We have people in front of customers that co-create solutions, and across the value chain, we're really focused on bringing the best experience and the best solution together for you. In 2020, just to highlight where our strengths and our focuses are, of course, we're first and foremost a grocery company. So almost 60% of our turnover in 2020 came from the grocery segment. Our second biggest segment is the home improvement segment, where approximately 14% of our turnover came from. And then we have fashion that has been in decline for a couple of years with us, but mainly as a trend in the market, that the online disruption is really affecting the expansion of traditional fashion retailers. So for us, it's approximately 8% of the sales in 2020. I think also fashion is the area where COVID hit the most during 2020. And then in the other segment, maybe that's not such a flattering name, but that's where we have really exciting things like cafes, we have petrol, or as we start to say now, service stations. You have everything around pharmacies that is super important and also a very vital part of the retail today. And we have all sorts of miscellaneous customers there. But I would say the things that are coming that are worth mentioning are really the cafes, the pharmacies, the service stations, and of course home electronics is also important to us. If we talk a little bit about our core segments, focusing in on grocery, home improvement, do-it-yourself and fashion, you can say that, of course, retail is struggling, and often when you talk about that retail is having a hard time and even the death of the physical retail, it's often referred to as coming from the fashion side. But if we look at where we are the biggest on the grocery side, you can see that the growth that is expected to happen within groceries and that is continuing and that we see within groceries is far outweighing the decline that we see on the fashion side. And also, it's no longer that expansion is the most important way to secure business, because it is really about maintenance, it's about refurbishment, and then it's about the trend of being relevant and staying dynamic. And that means rebuilding, refurbishing, changing, adding more technology. That happens faster and faster in an even more dynamic retail environment. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we're doing, and that we're excited about the future. Then I would like to talk a little bit about our One Atab strategy. And One Atab as a strategy and as a concept was launched the strategy was decided in February. It was launched internally within us, and we started to communicate it outside the company, I would say, from March last year. So it has a little bit more than a year in the making. And of course, it begins with people internally trying to understand what we need to do. It's a strategy that is built through the insight from our coworkers. It comes from insight from consumers and insight also from our customers. So it's really been a co-creation event behind the strategy, and it has been very important for us during 2020. And the reason why we wanted to focus on setting a strategy was really that ITAB's performance in the last couple of years was not really up to expectations, and we were not happy with that. And you could say that zooming out, SG&A was historically high, and we had so much potential that we had to drive out of the company that came from all the historic growth years through acquisitions. And all this potential is what we're now trying to realize and bring those synergies, not only to ourselves in terms of efficiency, but mainly, I would say, to our customers and to our suppliers that need to become much more engaged in the business model of ITAB. But of course, you can see that the curves, they were pointing downwards, and they had been pointing downwards for several years, so we had to start something. And before the strategy was accepted in February 2020, we took some obvious decisions already at the end of 2019 that started the transformation of ITAB. And the transformation is, like I said in the beginning, it's really built on consumer and retailer insight. And so that tells us that consumers are much more demanding. Consumers, they want personalization, they want to be recognized for who they are, they want to be seen, they want to pick off where they left off. And they really want to be acknowledged and have a consumer experience that fits them in the mood set that they're in right now. And maybe it's not the same mood set that they are in the weekend. So depending on who you are, you behave different. And this challenges retailers a lot. And these consumer behaviors, I think all of us can recognize ourselves in that. And our behaviors and our expectations really come from what we learn from social media, what we learn from online retailers, but also from other retailers that become better and better in picking up and meeting us as individuals and not as a mass market of consumers. And this implies for a retailer that many things needs to happen. And if you look back a couple of years, not only to look at ITAB's performance, but also to understand what's going on in the market, consumer behaviors are not changing overnight. It's a gradual shift. And also for the retailers, these implications have been hard to understand. So many retailers have been working for many years now trying to find the next big thing, the solution to come back to the growth. And it could be city center stores, could be environmental friendly concepts, could be smaller concepts, could be more technology, and to really achieve a multi-channel or omni-channel experience. So there's a lot of things that is going on. What it means for a retailer is even more investments need to be made, which puts even more pressure on being efficient in operations. And I think that means a lot for us in ITAB. We need to change our mindset. We can no longer hope for these big rollouts where we do repetitions and much of the same. We need to be as dynamic as the consumer behavior is. So we need to adapt, and we need to be much more efficient in delivering smaller projects, rebuilds, refurbishment, bringing technology solutions that are relevant here and now to consumer experiences and for the retailer, and at the same time drive increased conversion and sales and drive operational efficiency for our retailers. So building on this insight, you could say that our strategy consists of many things, and again I refer back to please watch the other movie as well. But if I sum up the strategy, there's a number of strategic priorities, and if I cluster those, you could say that the first part of the strategy is about stabilizing. It's about stabilizing ITAB, it's about simplifying, making it more clear, focus our efforts where we get the most value, and really stabilize our profitability. So that is where we had our initial focus and where we're keeping our focus. What we've been doing in parallel is to start to build new capabilities, build the ability to be efficient when the underlying business is changing, and invest in our people, invest in common tools and common ways of working, and to make sure that we lead always from the latest information and the best of experiences. And then it's about the third step. It's about the first two steps is really about getting control and making ITAB more scalable. And the third step then is to expand. Once we have that scalability, we're going to scale ITAB. It will be happening both organically, and we're going to do it through acquisitions that will further accelerate the transformation towards One Atab. And the whole purpose of all of this and all the capabilities that we want to build is really to become the leading European solution provider in our industry. So when we did the strategy, we put down kind of a mission statement or the wished position of how we want to be perceived. And this is not something where we are always today, but it is where we are when we are at our best already today. But it is what we're trying to achieve with the whole transformation of becoming a solution provider. And it goes like this, that at ITAB we help customers turn consumer brand experiences into physical reality with our know-how, our solutions and our ecosystem of partners. And this is super important because it's really about the solutions that the retailer needs. And it's not about our own ability always to deliver those on our own. Already today we have a vast network of suppliers that helps us. And this is going to become even more important in the future, to really build up an ecosystem of partners that quickly can bring innovation and relevant solutions to our customers. And I think that our know-how is one of the most unique things with ITAB. Our co-workers sit with such vast experience, and we have seen many of the challenges before. We just need to make sure that we're bringing our experiences, both good and bad, from one part of Europe or from one type of customer to another part of Europe. And this really to help us to become really the leader, not just in what we are delivering, but our insight into behind what works and what the consumers are thinking and what drives a more efficient and dynamic retail landscape. And you could say, in simpler word, it's about that we have to rethink retail and we have to do it together. We have put together this slide, and I know it's a bit, there's a lot of content to take in, so we'll provide this slide deck to you so you can download and look at it. But it's really about moving from having a broad portfolio, and probably the industry's broadest portfolio of products, into focusing on the solutions that really drive value for the retailer. And if you look at that, it's all about delivering the desired brand experience. And depending on which brand, depending on which retailer, that experience is very different. And it needs to be the right one for the right customer so they hit the consumers in the way that they want. It's really about how we drive increased conversion and how we can improve sales and drive increased sales. It's super important, like I said before, that the operational service and the operational efficiency gets improved. Otherwise, the retailers will not be able to afford to stay so dynamic as they need in the current consumer landscape. And then it's about reducing operational costs. It's about motivating that the things that you're doing can really have a strong business case, and that we are all in agreement with that. When those things are in place, then we feel confident that our products, our partners, and our solutions will become attractive. But if we're not focusing on those things that drive the most value for our retailers, then we will not be as successful. A little bit what you can expect from our strategy, it's really that we will build on our strengths. And we're going to maximize the output of our know-how and all our capabilities. And we're also going to invest further into our portfolio of offer. And we're going to invest more into the retail technology space. We're already one of the leading actors in this space in Europe. It's where we have the biggest growth today. It's where we have historically maybe not been so clear in our communication. We really need to improve that. We need to bring our software know-how and our IP know-how to the front line of business so retailers can understand what more we can do for them, because we do a lot. We're going to keep on focusing on Europe, but of course we follow our customers around the globe. We have activities also in South America and in Asia, and we're going to continue to do this, but we're first and foremost a European player. We're going to expand our portfolio, and not just in our own R&D, in our own know-how, we're also going to partner with more partners in order to become stronger and better together. And the reason behind this is that the trend is clear. There will be more and more technology coming into retail in the future. And somebody needs to take care of not just the individual pieces of technology or the individual pieces of software, but the total data landscape, the total infrastructure, the total service need. There needs to be solutions that takes the bigger picture and make sure that the retail customers are being treated in the best way, and that all the technology is supporting the retailer and the consumer. So there's plenty of opportunities here in the future, and we believe it's going to be a very, very dynamic next couple of years. Looking into how we're executing our strategy, because it's when we set out to agree on the path and the direction for ITAB in the future, we didn't know about COVID. We were not really, we had some signs in China at the time, but it was not really understood how huge this was going to be. So of course there are some challenges that we need to mitigate that comes from that. Because you know, all transformation is hard work, and some of these things makes it even harder. And I just want to point out a couple of these that, as we all know, society is facing a challenge that we have not seen in 100 years, and it's still affecting us. It was not isolated to 2020, it's still ongoing around us, and it makes planning and I would say consistency difficult. But the most important thing is that we stay safe and that we're focusing on providing solutions that keep people safe. What COVID has done to retail is that it has just accelerated the trend that was already ongoing. So you can see more solutions now that is providing safety, that is providing clarity and a more intuitive shopping experience. And also you can see some more technology to help people keep their distance, but at the same time be able to engage and enjoy their shopping. What we see right now, as this presentation is being recorded, are of course global disruptions in supply chain. It goes beyond the Suez Canal. It's really about shortages of containers, shortages of key components, shortages of strategic raw materials. And I think this is not unique for our industry. It's something that the world is experiencing, all of us. Hopefully this will quickly normalize again, so we will be better off and more predictable. But it poses some challenges here and now that needs to be considered when looking at us. I would say that, of course, driving transformation is not about having an amazing slide deck and a perfect strategy in a binder. It's about meeting people. It's about understanding the change together, talking about what is working, do the mitigating actions. It's really about building on each other and sharing and being open and transparent. That has been very challenging in a COVID environment. Some types of meetings and some types of decisions, and I would say the awareness that change needs to happen, that has been boosted by the pandemic. But things like being creative together or working on the most complex matters where you really need each other and to feel not only the different opinions but also the emotions around things, there it is more difficult, of course, when traveling is restricted and meetings are restricted. But we are working in a very good way, and we've come quite far in our efforts so far. And then, as you know, transformation is one thing, but you need to perform at the same time, and that is, of course, always the trick, to transform while you're performing. So after 1 year with ITAB, what can we say if we're trying to sum it all up? I would say that so far so good. We have really we didn't know about the size of the COVID pandemic when we set out our strategy, but you could say that the strategy has been our guiding star. It has helped us to have something to hold on to besides each other in this change, because we've had a clear list of priorities and focus areas that would make us better for the future, and we have really taken that opportunity to focus on doing that. And so far I would say that we have set a new group structure that is enabling better internal collaboration. It also brings more clarity to the different companies within ITAB. It has also meant that we have been able to delegate more decision making, and we have involved more people in the decision making as well. That always increases the quality of decisions. We have started to source through group categories, and the sourcing is one of the biggest potentials in ITAB. There was no really coordinated sourcing efforts before the One Atab strategy was implemented, and we can already now see the first effects coming out of a joint sourcing setup and collaboration of all our great purchases across the company. I would say that we have started and we have communicated several of our capacity adjustments. That means that we're moving production, we're streamlining production, we are reducing our physical footprint, and that with the ambition to gain more agility, shorter lead times, better control over quality and R&D, that is more production close. But most importantly, I would say that we want to become more efficient. So we can be that agile provider in this dynamic landscape. We have so far started to invest in our sales teams in becoming a solution provider. That requires tools, it requires information, it requires know-how, capabilities, it requires access to each other. So we started to invest in that on a group-wide level. We have also reduced our costs. We have made significant cost reductions in our SG&A, and that is not only connected to saving money and stabilizing profitability, it's mainly connected to how we're setting ourselves up to become a solution provider. So it's a new setup for the new type of retail landscape. It's also important that when you want to connect the vast number of ITAB companies that we have today that historically has been acting quite independently, we want to do that through leading through information, leading through shared values, leading through common ways of working, and then you need access to the same information. And that means that we need to work on our operating model. How do we work together as a system with our suppliers, with our customers in the most efficient but also flexible way without losing out on efficiency? And then I would say we have also worth mentioning here, we have expanded on our market position. We had the opportunity during 2020 to acquire one of our traditional, competitors that we had a big respect for, and we are now super proud to welcome all the co-workers that came from Sefla Retail Solutions into ITAB and to become part of the ITAB family. So far we are operating under 2 brands. And it has been a really good startup, I would say, from the very first day. We have also, maybe I will talk about financials a little bit later, but I want to mention it here that during the very tough 2020, we managed to improve the underlying profitability. And I cannot really stress how important that is and how proud we are over that achievement, because it was not something we expected when the uncertainty and the news around COVID 1 year ago was at its peak. So we're really proud that when we're concluding 2020 that we achieved that. And as a result, after improving cash flow and so on, we significantly reduced our net debt. So that's the segue into the financial outcome. So you could say that this is more of a quarterly view where you can see the 4 quarters of 19 and the 4 quarters of 2020. You can really see that we're starting to get the numbers and the curves and the trends pointing in the right direction. And I would say that even though we lost revenue, mainly during the first half of 2020, we managed to compensate by doing our One Atab activities to really counter the loss of sales with removing costs at an equally high pace. And of course, a lot of restructuring cost has come out of that. We have improved our adjusted EBITDA margin, and I think that's something to be proud of. I think I mentioned some of these other points already, so I will continue to just highlight the improvement of our operating cash flow, because it has really been important. And of course, when sales volumes are going down, it's a natural effect that you improve your cash flow. But we have seen that when the sales volume started to come back during the second half of the year, we still managed to increase our cash flow and improve that further. And as a result, you could say that our net debt has been reduced by almost 700 million in 2020, which is an amazing achievement considering that we also lost 700 million in turnover. And as all of you shareholders know, we've had quite a lot of communication during the autumn, winter and the spring around the rights emission. And we decided to strengthen ITAB's balance sheet already in April when the uncertainty around the pandemic situation was at its peak. And we wanted to strengthen it so we could be calm and know that we would be able to navigate through this crisis in a good way. But we also wanted to strengthen the balance sheet because we had a too high level of debt. And we wanted to be ready and to be strong if there came opportunities for us to act and to be able to accelerate the strategy. And that's also what we have done. And I would say that the outcome of this, once the net effect was known, you could say that we have a very low net debt. And this chart is then showing the net debt excluding IFRS 16. And the rights issue was well received by you guys. It was, I think it was subscribed at 99.2%, which is super good. And then many of you wanted to have more subscription rights than the ones that you had the right to. And by that, the total rights issue became oversubscribed, which is something that is super good. Looking at, I would say, going back to the slide I had before when I talked about the last year's implying need for change, this is the same figures, but then we have added on 2020 as well. And then you can say, you see clearly here that the last couple of years of decline, we have managed to turn the tide. And we managed to do that during the most difficult of circumstances and the most challenging year from a commercial standpoint that anybody in ITAB have experienced. So we are proud of that. But of course, will we be able to sustain? Will we be able to do everything that we have promised you going forward? That still remain to be seen, but so far so good. We're really confident in the actions that we've taken so far. Maybe to highlight something, as I said, net sales decreased by approximately 700 million or 12%. EBITDA adjusted, when we exclude the non-recurring, was improved. So we were almost up on, we're just south of 600 million SEK. The operating profit, excluding non-recurring items, also rose quite significantly. So, and then when we look at the total costs, I would say the thing that is maybe not so good is our financial costs. Because of the uncertainty, because of the credit market, we have had very high financial costs. Right now we still have them, but we're working super focused on making sure that they are being normalized now when we have that strength in the balance sheet. But what we're most proud over is, of course, that we managed to take care of our customers. we managed to improve our cash flow, and we managed to really make 2020 into a year of experiences. And it wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't had all the hard work from all our people and all our customers. Business in 2020 is not the same as it was in 2019. So what are just relating back a little bit to what you guys can expect from us. So you see a chart here that is showing our guidance that we gave, and we gave that guidance during, I think it was on July 10th, July 10th in 2020. And that came from the biggest of uncertainties. We wanted to share the view that we had from the inside of the company, and we committed to a guidance, and we managed to deliver on that guidance in 2020 and even over-deliver. And then we set out targets for 2022, more so it can be easier for you to understand what the effects of the One Atab transformation, and especially the cost efficiency activities, are going to deliver. And what's important is that this is more or less based on a flat market growth. We did not fuel this plan by adding new revenue streams, because then we think it would be not fair. We really had to focus on doing our homework to get the profitability on a stable level and not use new revenue as a way to get the results. Of course, new revenue is very welcome, and we're working focused on that, and that will help even more. But this is our plan, and this is what we're focused on. But what you can expect after the transformation from a financial point of view is significantly reduced fixed costs. I would say also significantly reduced costs on SG&A level. We are going to have a much more dynamic sales team. We're going to have a more efficient supply chain in total. And we're going to make sure that we only have the costs that we do need in order to be a dynamic and agile player that still has the capability of solving the immediate customer needs. Maybe to highlight also that, we are reducing our footprint, and I've said that before, but it's about the capital efficiency. We can become so much more capital efficient than what we have achieved already. I think we have delivered a big way on the targets that we set up when we gave the guidance, but there's still more to do. And when it comes to the restructuring costs, I would say that our deliveries are a little bit ahead of plan, and our restructuring costs are a little bit behind our plan. So we think that we will have a good effect of this going forward, but it's still too early to say. So that's it. That was everything in one go. So I'm super happy that if you are still around there and still listening. And I have one more teaser just to let you know that keep looking at ITAB, keep being interested and curious, because there's a lot of change coming the next few years when we're investing in ourselves, we're investing in our customers. I just want to say that during Q2 we will launch a new group website, and please stay tuned and go in there and follow us, because I think it will be even more true to our ambitions of becoming the leading solution provider. Big thanks.